job shuffling feet. Thank you for that. Let's take another little bit of getting used to. We want to keep things fresh. So today, as we arrive, really coming to be here in this moment, I want to start with this today. So as you're thinking about your breath, put your feet on the ground, get yourself centered, thinking about your shoulders today. So if you take a moment, really put your attention on your shoulders, sensing your shoulders. This is the joint, obviously, that makes the connection between the levers that are your arms and then the power of the pectoral muscles that comes from, connected to your core. Helps us to do all kinds of things. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about birds. So the idea that this huge muscle right here for birds that connects, down here to their keel. So this is their breastbone. Our breastbone is flat, and instead on birds, their keel, their breastbone sticks straight out because their pectoral muscles might comprise 30% of their weight. So thinking about the power of those muscles and how birds are built similarly to us, and yet also being able to do what they do in the world. So thinking about their experience of being, we are bodies and they are bodies. And we're going to do making some other connections today. So another deep breath or two, and we'll start with our announcements for the day. We have the Albatross extra credit movie that's showing tonight in 205 Ferguson at 7 o'clock. A love story for our time from the heart of the Pacific. This movie comes highly recommended from lots of people. So very powerful experience. And then this is where we are, thinking about environmental science. We're making a very dramatic transition today, in some ways, from what we have been doing to what maybe when you signed up for environmental science, we might be digging into more of what you sort of stereotypically think of as an environmental science class. So one of the Latin roots of the word education is that we're preparing a new generation for what is to come. We're in a really challenging time right now about knowing what is to come, the uncertainty of what is coming on our planet. So how can this education help you to create solutions to the current challenges, as well as to the problems, the things we don't even know about yet? So it requires questioning and thinking and learning and unlearning. So that's why we started there in part one, because now we're going to move into some really tough stuff. We're going to be moving and shifting into some of these global challenges that you all may know a little bit about, or maybe know a lot about. And then we'll dig into this new kind of exploration. So we're going to start that today with this class about birds. And with me today for this bird class is my dear friend Doug. He works with me at Shavers Creek. We've been working together for a long time, over 25 years now. And I'd like to open this conversation with Doug with this. You all had this prompt as one of your pack back reflections. The more of the world I am in relationship with, the more alive I become. Which is a lesson that I have learned from and with Doug as our time has gone together. And so I want to introduce you and also then ask you what does this mean to you? What does this...
Well, first, Jen, it's great to be here with you playing the State Theater.
This is great.
Just so you know, this is very surreal. It really is. And I wish someday for you too could have the bird dialogues at the State Theater with a dear friend of 25 years. Really is
Fun.
surreal. Yeah.
Surreal.
Yeah, so the question is, what sort of, how I got into relationship with birds? Or
Yeah,
you know?
just the natural world in general, and then sort of roll that into your bird connection.
Bird connection. I was one of those kids, and it may be true for you too. Are you one of those kids that, you know, ever since you can remember, you sort of were connected to nature? You played in the dirt, you slept in the sunshine, you didn't know what those things were? I knew they were birds, I knew, you know, that, but I didn't know what kind of bird. So ever since I can remember, I've been in relationship with what I would have called nature. I was a nature kid. But it took time to grow into what I would say right now. I guess I'm an avid bird. I'm not. I see birds. Note of birds every day. If you said stop doing that, I'd say I can't stop doing that. It's just they're around. Birds animate our world. They animate my world. They animate your world. And so in my 20s, I first came to the realization that with a little bit of work, I could sort of move from that's a bird to that is a red-bellied woodpecker, and create a file in my brain titled red-bellied woodpecker, and to be able to put experiences, learnings about that animal into my sort of file keeping. So I entered into relationship with now probably hundreds of different kinds of birds that, again, animate my world.
Animate your world? What do you mean?
You step out of the yard, and this morning I heard bluebirds, and I was watching them fly across. It's not pre-programmed. It wasn't on my phone. It wasn't, it was authentic. It was real. Those are bluebirds sitting in a tree, and I heard them first, and I thought, oh, they're bluebirds. And they're part of my backyard. And then driving, up and over the mountain, I'm thinking about, you see maybe starlings in the countryside, kestrel perched on the wire, a little falcon wagging their tail. Birds animate, they also entertain. They lead me to wonder daily about them. I'm a very curious person. You might be too. And so when you add a little bit of interest, again, since you're young, I've always felt like I wanted to be a nature person. You do that with a little bit of luck coming across people who can guide you into, yeah, that bird is a XYZ. I just sort of entered into that relationship. And again, birds entertain, animate, make me marvel, which is part of my life. Someone said, draw a picture of yourself, Doug. I'd say, okay, here's a picture of me, and well, there's a tree with a bird in it, because I don't see myself separate from them. They're just part of what I do.
This connection that I'm sensing that you feel with the natural world, how do you think that relates to human beings as a whole and nature?
I think that I began to, even as kids, don't you care about animals? I mean, when you were young, did you care about your dog, your cat, your gerbil, your whatever you had? At an early age, my parents we always had pets in the house. We didn't have a big house, but we had pets. I had 4 siblings. It was a busy house, but we always had room for chickens, bunnies, a chameleon, a whole bunch. And you sort of, again, you're entering a relationship with, if you have a pet, your cat, whatever. You begin to care about them, right? So for me, I began to start caring about birds and my impact on birds. So I'm one of those people, you're driving on a country road. Why is that person going so slow? Hurry up! I drive the speed limit. Why do I drive the speed limit? Because I care about birds, especially in spring when they have other things on their minds. And birds make some poor choices when it comes to vehicles, and they fly across the road at the wrong time. So for me personally, my care goes into that. And the people I'm with, whether it's my sons, drive slower, you're going too fast, watch out for the birds. Or the coffee I drink, because I drink shade-grown, organic coffee from a plantation in Honduras that values bird life. So the care for me, because I'm in relationship with birds, I've become more caring and more aware that my impacts, as small as it can be, sort of ripple through. And again, if you're true to yourself, right? If you say, I care about something, well, you should try, right? You should try a little bit harder to show that care. And so I think that's where you go.
Yeah, I think it's a good connection, the way that, so many of the choices that we make have direct effect on either other people, other things, on ourselves, and how we view all of those relationships. So I appreciate you speaking to that. And so what's happening with birds now? What's the scoop on birds?
It's the scoop on birds.
Yeah.
Crazy winter, right? I've been in the State College region now for 35 years. Probably the warmest winter I can recall. And as a naturalist, someone who pays attention to the world around you, Lake Perez is not frozen. It should be frozen. It should be frozen all through March. It should be a frozen lake. Should be able to ice fish, skate on, walk across, explore. It has not been frozen for weeks and weeks. Plants that I would assume would bloom probably in early March. Things like little skunk cabbage up and blooming in the marsh. So it's warm. And how do birds react? Well, I can tell you, a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine, how geeky is this? There's a State College bird club. That's pretty, on the geeky scale, that's pretty heavy. It gets even worse because I haven't really said this in front of a group of people before, not alone the stage at the State Theater, but I've been the president of the State College Bird Club for a number of years now. It's hard to rope people into organizations these days. If any of you have presidential aspirations, talk to me. I'd love to have you be the next president of the State College Bird Club. Where was I going with that? No, so what's happening with birds now? So, fellow bird clubber said, hey, there's a big roost of robins at the Arboretum. We should count them. I was like, oh yeah, I'm down for that. What's that about? He said, well, we should get up before sunrise and get some other folks and do a little stakeout and see how many robins are leaving the Arboretum in the morning. So that's what we did. We got up early. I drove in. I got to one side of the Arboretum, the place where the office is, and I stood there. And sure enough, right before sunup, you could start hearing the tuck, tuck, tuck of American robins. And I started to count, and they were flying northwest out of the Arboretum from where I was standing. At the end of the morning, I counted 620 American robins that were roosting in the Arboretum, and then they left. And that was from my vantage. There's easily a couple thousand robins nesting in the Arboretum, well, not nesting, roosting in the Arboretum right now. I think they're still there. So what's all those robins doing here? Well, it hasn't been cold, and robins switch from earthworms, insects. In the wintertime, they eat fruit, and the Arboretum is a wonderful place for shelter and food, and in the morning they were flying out to probably more berries, more fruit someplace else. And it's not so cold, right? So the food is available, plenty of space. Robins have stayed north, so they're still here in State College. They're getting an early start to spring. So that's happening. And then on the top of the mountain, golden eagles are starting to move. Yeah. So if you ever went outside of town south towards Huntingdon, you go through Pine Grove Mills, you make a left at the light, that's Route 26 south, you get to the overlook on Tussey Mountain.
Joe Hayes Vista.
Joe Hayes Vista. Joe Hayes Vista. So you park there, you look over the valley, great spot, and then you just walk in and you find a paid hawk counter there. Andrew Bechtel is there, probably today, yeah. So it's just started, and he is getting paid to sit on a rock and watch as raptors, birds of prey, move from the south, move north, pass over Tussey Ridge, and continue on. He's part of just a nationwide ridge hawk counting that goes on just to monitor the state of golden eagles. And it turns out that Tussey is one of the best places east of the Mississippi to see migrating golden eagles. Now, it's authentic, it's real. I can't guarantee you go up to Tussey and you're going to see a golden eagle, but if you've never seen a golden eagle and you want to increase your chances, middle of March would be the day about when I go up to Tussey, all things considered, south winds, should be a good day for seeing golden eagles. And you have someone with you who'd say, yeah, see that dark bird out there flying? That's a golden eagle. Now that's a turkey vulture, that's a red tail. Did you see that merlin one flying by? You might say things like that.
So birds are in migration, as well as the ones that have stayed here all winter. And there are people paying attention, people counting. And as I understand it, that's something that happens, I mean, this golden eagle count, for example, that's been going on.
Yeah, it was a couple of decades. And that was someone who just was curious, was there at the right time, probably in mid-March, was a birder, and just watched eagles go by. And he thought to himself, I think this is something special. I think we should pay attention. He got some friends, and they started to count that spring 20 plus years ago.
And so counts like this happen, whether it's up on the mountain or these morning counts, or there are also counts that happen on a very routine basis. Things, the same weekend in May every year, people go out and count. And so with all this research that's being done, things are coming up about what's happening with birds. So Ben's going to start a video for us. So take in this video, check this out.
Birds are part of our lives. They fill the air with song, inspire us with their beauty, and make their homes in the most unexpected places. Sometimes they're even our neighbors. But the birds we love are vanishing. An alarming new study reveals that the population of North American birds has dropped nearly 30% since 1970. That's almost 3 billion birds gone, vanished from our forests, grasslands, and backyards in less than the span of a human lifetime. Some of the hardest hit are familiar birds: orioles, meadowlarks, swallows, warblers. What's driving this decline? Birds are losing the habitats they need, places to live, find food, rest, and raise their young. They face many other threats as well, from free-roaming cats and collisions with glass to toxic pesticides and insect declines. Climate change will compound all of these problems and accelerate the loss of habitats birds need. This enormous loss of birds signals a broader crisis in the natural world, one that ultimately affects us all. But it's not too late. Our actions on behalf of birds make a positive difference and benefit the entire planet. Thanks to strong conservation efforts and habitat management, many waterfowl and formerly endangered species are now flourishing. It's time to expand these conservation efforts to help the rest of our birds recover too. With our help, they can be restored as a vital part of the American landscape and a precious part of our lives. We're united in pursuing better protections and increased support for birds. And you can help. Please join us.
when you take that in as a bird person, a bird connector, as a bird person.
Someone who cares about birds?
Somebody who cares
Like,
about
I don't know, suppose you love to play golf, 18 holes, and they came along and they said, 18 is overrated. I think you should only have 16 holes. What would you do? You know, you kind of
Yeah.
outraged. But in this case, it's not. It's golf, it's other forms of life, other earthlings on this planet. So I would caution you a little bit about entering into relationship with the natural world, because I don't know, you grow to love things, and then you learn about the challenges that those things face. As a naturalist at Shavers Creek for over 30 years now, I've watched the landscape and my fellow earthlings, things like little brown bats. We lost our colony of little brown bats due to white nose syndrome. It was like 1,500 little brown bats that were a regular part of my summer, gone. I love trees. I love ash trees, white ash. In Pennsylvania, we're slated to lose 300 million ash trees. Talking big canopy trees too. From an insect that, through no fault of its own, just likes ash. And emerald ash borer did not evolve with ash here. And so those ash have no protection against them. A very small protection, about 2% of all ash has some protection. So, you know, you care about things, and then the world changes, and they become at risk, and you watch them physically die. In the case of ash trees, in the case of little brown bats, they just vanished. As a birder, when you read about, all right, 3 billion birds lost, that was a snapshot in time. So 50 years ago, they estimated in North America 10 billion birds. They looked at those numbers again, because again, people are watching birds, recording birds, submitting. There's something called the Breeding Birds Survey, where you really go out in the field and spend the morning at 50 counts, point counts, spend 3 minutes and record all the birds. So this is good data. And it's been going on, you know, breeding bird surveys have been going on for over 50 years. So they had the data, and they compared 50 years ago to a snapshot in time now, and what was 10 billion birds then is 7 billion birds now. You do the math, 3 billion are missing. And those birds that are missing are the ones that are in the habitats that are in decline. So you can imagine grassland birds, what we've done with grasslands. We grow a lot of food. So again, it's sort of that caring, right? I'm a clean plate person. I had 2 sons. When they were this little, it was always like, you're not going to eat that? You really should eat that. No, I'm not going to eat it. Okay, I'm your dad. I'll eat it for you. What the heck? Why do I do that? I cannot stand to see food wasted. Why? Because I care about birds. Why? Because I'm in a relationship with birds. Food waste to me is like a slap in the face. How dare you waste that food? How dare you waste the calories, the energy it took to, I mean, that's my internal, now, if I ever saw you throw something away, I wouldn't judge you, but I'd think, dang, that's a wasted opportunity. So that's how care sort of comes out. Yeah.
So some of these bird species that we're talking about are things that you may not have heard about before. They're not birds that you know of in your world, and yet, as Doug has just mentioned, they are part of the system. They're part of the connection. These are grassland species, farmland species, high mountain species. So, and they're all here, right? At some point in time, they come through central Pennsylvania. Blackpoll warblers are one of my favorites because they come to my yard. They come to my yard in the middle of May, and the morning that I walk out and I hear their song. They're only there for a day, maybe 2, on their way to where they're going next. But they eat the little seeds of the pine cones in my yard. And so they get to be part of my life. And yet these others, even though they don't stop, they're still part of the story of a place that I care about. So those things, the that went through in the video there, the challenges that they're facing, the loss of forest habitat and other habitats, those grassland habitats, in both Central and South America. So essentially these birds have two homes. They spend part of the year, the summer here, having their young, and then they're headed south to spend for the winter. While there aren't insects to eat here, they head south. And so they have the habitat there too. So these are two different maps taken over the pictures, 1975 versus 2009, and how much of the greenery remains after that point of time. So habitat loss, and we'll talk a little bit more about these kind of developments. What happens when we create a development like this is then there's this edge right around here where there wasn't an edge before. And that edge then allows other things to move in, things that take advantage of edge habitats. Opossums that eat bird eggs, and raccoons that eat bird eggs. Lots of different kinds of predators. Snakes are more likely in those spaces because there's that edge provides safety and habitat, and then also that's where there's food. So that is a real problem. Communication towers are a challenge. The pesticides and herbicides that are being sprayed, the windmills, the wind power, that it's quite a debate, right? This would decrease our use of fossil fuels, and yet it's impacting other things around, the grass and the land, but the animals that live there as well.